Welcome everybody, my name is Adam Shilton, this is AS Fishing TV and we are finally, after quite a bit of effort and a few technical issues, live with the match ace, that is the fantastic Andy Dyson. Welcome Andy, welcome to AS Fishing TV.
Hiya mate.
How's it doing, alright?
Alright, fun.
Good. So we've got a quick check, make sure everything's working and make sure everybody. You can hear you. My name is Adam Shilton, this is AS Fishing. Yeah, we can definitely hear you, there we go, right, fantastic. So, first and foremost, for you lot at home, thank you very much for all the questions. I've had some questions out on the bank. I was walking around a local club yesterday. You'll know it, Andy, Bay Mountain Angling Club. A few questions from there. I've had loads of stuff privately. We've had some stuff on YouTube, some stuff on social media, and hopefully we get a few as well coming through as we broadcast. So we're going to be live for about an hour, there or thereabouts. So we'll get in as much as we can. I think to start us off, Andy, you sent me a bit of a snapshot, if you like, of your match CV, and it's just colossal, mate. And I think that there's loads of stuff on there. Obviously, the Fishomania Runner Up recently, the qualification and the actual final prize. It's very unlucky at the end, I think, for those who are watching it, but that's match fishing, I suppose. But there's so much other stuff in there as well. We've got record holders at Bonehill Mill. We've got countless match open wins. You can't. I think you've lost count, haven't you, at this point? We've got Angling Times Winter League Herringbrook team winner. We've got Winter League second and third place at Partridge. We've regular framer obviously at Herringbrook, not just the Winter League but all year round. I know you've been using a certain method which we'll probably talk about at Herringbrook a little bit. So there's just loads and loads and loads of stuff, isn't there? So I think really the first thing for me is what's the most proudest moment to date really for you?
Well, I mean, Fisho. It's got to be Fisho, hasn't it?
It would have been for me, mate, if I'd have got the same CV as you, yeah. So talk us through that then. Obviously, you qualified from Old Huff, didn't you?
Yep.
So I know as well, but for the viewers at home, you fish Old Huff loads, absolutely loads. And it was great to see you qualify from there. Really good weight as well. How long till it sunk in?
Well, I didn't know how to cheer until everyone had gone, and I got in the car and I phoned the missus, and then I got excited.
Yeah, like proper kid at Christmas Eve excited.
Yeah, well, I spoke to a lot of people on the different lakes, and I knew I'd had the best weight up to then, and there was a couple of lakes that hadn't weighed in, and I was just waiting for them to weigh in. But it was close match.
But still, the result,
Yeah, it was something that don't work there. It was something, I did something different that I've never really caught on before, and it worked.
And was that the first time you tried it in that match as well?
Yeah, I just fed it as a throwaway line, really.
Brave. That's very brave, isn't it? I suppose it's the gamble, though, isn't it? And I think that argument, not just a top matchman like yourself, but just matchmen in general at different levels. Those of them that he who dares wins, I think, to a certain point. Sometimes it pays off and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. Well, I'm like that in my fishing. I always say if you're going to win a match, plan A or B's got to work. If plan A don't work, you're not winning match.
Yeah, exactly. So then, yeah. So then, obviously, it gets to coming up to the actual final itself, and there's so many things that I suppose everyone wants to know about, and you'll probably naturally talk to other mates about it and angling buddies about it. But that build up, that fishing build up to the actual final itself, the atmosphere, the kit that you get through things when things start to seem really real. Did you sort of have that moment of, oh my God, this is actually happening?
No. Honestly, I didn't.
Nothing at all?
No, I was excited, looking forward to it. Just another match. I had that mentality all the way through.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good, there's a tip there actually, isn't there, for people coming into match fishing. Don't get sucked in by the pressure. It's just another match. Go there, do the best you can, and start from there.
Blinkers on, fish your match.
Yeah.
Don't fish someone else's match. Don't fish the next peg's match. Fish yours.
Yeah, absolutely. So that actually, I mean, it's just amazing, isn't it? It's a great event to watch on TV. I wish that Sky TV would invest in somebody who knows what they're talking about to actually present it. Because
no, it's an hard one, that, because if you had someone in your ear that all day asking many questions and you weren't used to it, you won't get it right. So I've got to do it the way they do it.
Yeah, and it's difficult, isn't it? And then looking at the Golden Reel final as well, actually, and obviously we had some really well-known anglers that were doing walk rounds on the day, and actually there was loads of really positive comments about that. So obviously that's not your concern on the day. You're just, like you said, you're concentrated, you're focused, you're fishing another match.
Yeah.
So then you get through it. Obviously, just talk us through that last, not so much, you finish the match, the whistle's gone. You're probably pretty close to guessing what you've got in the net. Talk us from that point to the actual recognition of I've just come runner up in Fish Show 2022.
Well, as far as the weight I had was concerned, I didn't know how close I was. We weren't getting information on weights and where people were off Sky's bank runners, so we had to depend on a mate of my bank runner sending that information to us. And the penultimate weigh-in, we never got that weight. So I didn't know. I had no idea how close it was at all. And the first I knew that I hadn't won was when Christian and all his fans cheered on the other corner. And then we're like, right, I've not won. And I didn't know I'd come second for a few minutes after that until Sky told us.
Wow.
So I didn't know.
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? So then, obviously, that feeling then, I suppose it's... was it bittersweet? Obviously...
I had seconds of, I could have maybe, but seconds, and then it was like, nah, it's all good.
Exactly, and a competition of that calibre, arguably the biggest calendar event of the year for a matchman. Obviously, there's a few cropping up now, isn't there? And it started to expand, which is fantastic for the sport. But second place at such an event, and obviously taking you on then to collect that all-important cheque, which I'm sure has already been spent, that must have been amazing.
Yeah, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I had a chat with Chris as well. Lovely lad. Deserves to win it. Got his match right. Yeah, fantastic.
Brilliant, and it was awesome to watch. And again, hats off to all of you and your bank runners and everyone that makes the event such a fantastic thing. It's brilliant to really watch. So that brings me on then, really, matey, to this is quite an important question for a couple of reasons. Excuse me, I've just got to pull it up from my phone. So this was sent to me privately. Why is it you press all the wrong buttons when you... Bear with me a second. This is from a fantastic young angler. And I've had the pleasure of actually taking his dad out for a couple of coaching sessions. And then he come with his son and did a few bits there and got to know him a bit more. So this is Elliot. He's 9 years of age. And his question to you, matey, what would be your advice to a young junior angler looking to start match fishing? 9 years old. I like ambition.
Yeah, very. Best bit of advice I can give him is pick a venue, stick to it, master it before you move on. That's the best bit of advice. There's no point jumping from venue to venue where every day you're fishing a different match. Get the basics right, start framing there, then look to move on. That's what I'd say.
Brilliant. Yeah, and what about things like, because I, like yourself, do coaching as well, and I do quite a lot with youth development within the sport, both with charities and privately. So, I know what some of the things that I advise those youngsters, but what about not just stick to the venue, but what about different methods and things like that? So obviously these kids are on YouTube regularly, they're looking at all of the videos, they are learning loads from it because they're like sponges and they absorb it really well, which is amazing. And in some cases, they're finishing sentences for you, for those of them that are really into it. There's a lot to get to grips with, isn't there, in terms of technique for such young anglers? What's your advice around that?
It is, but for me, the basics are still that's the fundamentals of fishing. Get your feeding right, get your rigs right, get your rotation right, and it doesn't really matter, I don't think, with baits and stuff like that. If you've got the feed in the rigs and the rotation right at the right time of the day, you'll catch the fish.
Yeah, and it's just that enjoyment, isn't it, for everybody really, but especially for young anglers coming into the sport, to keep that magic alive. And I think I said to somebody at the weekend, actually, doesn't matter where you're up to on your angling journey, what your ability is, what your age is, the kind of angling you're into. If the magic is gone when that float dips or the tip moves or something like that, then you possibly shouldn't be there.
Oh, 100%. I don't sleep the night before a match. Honestly, I'm like a kid.
I can see that when you win, as I saw the other week, and you're running around on the opposite bank.
I love it.
No, it's good, isn't it? Yeah, I really like that. Brilliant. So thank you, Elliot, for that question. And what a person to answer it as well. So not just have I said that to you, but now Andy has as well. So there you go. Right, here's another one then. This is Carl. Now you've got to be careful with this answer, Andy, because it might give a few secrets away. Please could Andy explain how he alters his rigs and baits that he may use coming into autumn/winter at venues such as Old Huff and Heronbrook, please?
I don't.
You don't? You just keep it as it is?
Don't alter me rigs, don't alter me baits. The only thing I do is reduce them.
Yeah, because obviously the fish are eating less.
Yeah. Rigs and baits through the autumn stay exactly the same. I don't scale anything down up until probably just before the first frosts, because at this time of year you can catch some massive weights of carp and you don't want to be scaling down yet. You'll never land them. No,
definitely not. Definitely not. And I was walking around again. I had this comes on to another question and we'll sort out afterwards actually around practice. But I had a window on Sunday. I had a few hours where I could just go and try a few things out. Some things I've been playing with, and I'm in a situation in a minute where I've been swapping my ever faithful tackle, let's say, to certain brands. So you have to get used to some of those products and you have to play with them a little bit and see what fits best. So I dropped onto I left them a bit of room, but there was a match on a local venue on Sunday and I just dropped 5 or 6 pegs away from them. So there was a bit of pressure in terms of on the water from a match point of view, and I was just trying a few things out. I literally fished for about 2.25 hours, and it was really, really obvious. The match anglers were talking about, or some of them were talking about, we'd had 2 mornings of white over. Temperature had dropped in those nights, but obviously, if you look at the forecast for the next 2 weeks, it's coming back up again. It's dipping a little bit at the weekend. And I can hear them talking about how they're going to scale down rigs and things like that. And actually, what I was doing that day and what I was practicing with, there's no way I could. I had about £30 of fish, £40 of fish nearly in that time, and some of them were big fish. They're still chewing, aren't they, massively?
Oh yeah, I had £60 in the last 40 minutes at the Old Huff on Saturday.
Yeah,
£60 in 40 minutes. You're not landing that if you scaled your kit down.
Not at all. So this comes on to another question then. So when you do scale your kit down, what I know what I do, but what this was from another guy. What is written when it comes round to really tough conditions. Middle of the winter, do you scale down your line diameters and hook sizes, or is it dependent on venue and species targeting in a match?
Yeah, it's dependent on all them things. If I'm on a predominantly F1 venue, I will scale down quite a lot, 09, 010 up lengths. Places like Heronbrook and the Old Huff, where you've still got a chance of a carp, I never really drop below 011 hook lengths, even when it's frozen. I think if you've got your shot in right, presentation right, you're feeding in the right places, you'll still get bites and you need to land them.
I think it's
fishing.
Yeah, and I think it's important as well, isn't it? I get a lot to have more patience when the conditions are so bad that, especially F1s, the chances are they are going to feed at some point throughout that 5-hour period. They might only feed for 40 minutes.
It'd be after dinner time, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, and finding a depth in which they're going to be comfortable in, and just being patient, just sitting on that line, and don't overfeed it, and wait for them to turn up, and then maximise the chance.
I'm not very patient, me. I'm usually skipping about 10 or 12 different lines. I've been known to have up to 15 on the go in the winter, and lots of carbon out.
But, I can't even count to 15. Yeah, no, it's a good question. That I like that one, and I know for me, I don't line diameter wise, I rarely come off 016, 017 for my main rigs for pole fishing.
No point. Main lines stay 016 for the majority in the winter, 018 for my main in the summer, and obviously then you've got your 022 for edge rigs.
Hippos.
But
yeah.
Main line in an 016, and then hook lengths in the winter, partridge, small F1 venues, I'll go down to 010. Anywhere else, I'll stay at 011.
Yeah, and I think I've only ever been 08 silverfish frozen over. You know.
I don't think you need to drop like that for silverfish on commercials.
I think the finer you go as well, this is an important tip for all you out there, the finer you go, both with hook lengths and with mainline, the higher chance of tangles as well, isn't there? Especially in the winter and it's windy and everything's getting blown everywhere. It's a bit of a nightmare.
Yep.
Fabulous. Thank you for that question. Right then, this is the easy one. You've got to expand on it though, you can't just give me one answer. Simply says, pellets or casters shallow? What do you prefer?
I prefer pellets.
Okay, so why? He hasn't put why, but I want to know why.
£200 on a pint of 4 mils, where the man next to me is catching £200 on 30 quid's worth of casters.
So literally cost then.
Yeah. I mean, I will fish casters, don't get me wrong. I think over the past 5 years, I can honestly say there's one occasion, and I mean this, and the lads that know me will back me up, where I think not having casters has cost me.
Right.
One match. Every other match I've fished pellets and I've done just as well.
Yeah, it's quite interesting that, isn't it? And I think, again, from my experience, alternating the size of pellets that you're feeding. I think
it's specific as well. You've got some venues, natural baits are the only way to catch shallow. They won't take a pellet. My venues, I can fish pellets.
Or that other stuff that you used the other week.
Well, yeah.
So this is a bit of an in-joke. So we fished a match together, didn't we? So actually my first match back since February 2020, before the pandemic. So I come back at... Say again, mate.
Also my first match back at the off since qualifying for Fish Up.
That's right, yeah. So obviously I'm sitting there, well happy to be back on the open circuit again. It's been a while. And I got cameras behind me as well, so a bit of added pressure. And who's setting up right opposite me? Andy Dyson. Amazing. And Andy, you fished amazing that day. It was a pleasure to watch you, to be honest. And if anyone wasn't sure what you were doing, by the end of the match, I think the entire venue knew, because you were running around shouting, "Go on, pace shallow," weren't you? At the end of it.
Yeah. As soon as I got my fight on it, because I wasn't sure it was going to work.
And you had some frustration, didn't you, as well? Obviously, I could hear duck noises going on and things like that.
Yeah, that's venue rules dictate you've got to fish a certain depth. The fish were sitting a lot shallower than I could fish, so I fouled and lost a few, yeah.
I can tell you every single one, and I caught it on camera as well. So, there's one or two choice words coming from Andy, and for me it was comforting because I thought, well, at least it's not just me losing fish today. So, you helped me out a bit there, mate.
Still laugh about it when I get home.
You were laughing about it then, actually. To be fair. No, it was a good one. Right, okay, let's move on to another question. I like this one. Who are your angling heroes and why?
I haven't really got any.
Okay.
Because I've always done my own thing. I've got to say, one of my angling heroes has got to be my best mate, Matt Green. He's a legend. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't be fishing. And he don't do a lot of match fishing now, but we go carp fishing once or twice a year. But yeah, I don't have any angling heroes. I think there's some superstars on the bank, and you look up and respect them. But yeah.
That's interesting, isn't it? That's interesting. So, what was your introduction to angling like then?
I used to fish the canals in Salford, the Leeds Liverpool Canal. I used to go on my own. Yeah, honestly, I had some Argos tackle, and I used to go and walk up and down the canal. And I was 13, 14 years old.
Yeah. And that's amazing, isn't it? That's how so many of us sort of start off, either independently or through a family member or a friend that introduces you to the sport. And it's good as well, because obviously, and then you might get it as well, but again, I get questions around, do you just fish commercials? Because that's what they see on here, And then when I talk to them about my apprenticeship, if you like, in angling, was similar to yourself: canals, rivers, River Weaver, River Dane, River Severn, dace, grayling, trotting maggot, centre pin, 13, 14 foot rod, all that kind of stuff, bait apron, all that jazz. I absolutely loved that. That really captured me as a youngster. And I would say that it might be similar for you. If you didn't have that grounding, if you like, when you were introduced to the sport, do you think you would have been as successful on commercial fisheries?
I don't know, because I went fishing till I was about 16. as just a noddy on the canal with some Argos kit. And then I went clubbing for 6-7 years. I disappeared, and it wasn't until I moved to Cheshire that I started fishing commercials. So yeah, I never fished for 6 or 7 years. I've only been commercial fishing, I want to say, 17 years?
Still quite a long time, mate.
match fishing about 16 years, I think.
Yeah, and it's changed, hasn't it, so much, even just in that time?
Yeah, it has. But I think, like, when I started commercial fishing, the evolution was already started. Pellets were already one of the main baits and stuff like that. So I think I've got into it before, like on the change, if you like. So I've managed to evolve with it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and to sort of, to come through that whole journey with everything else.
Yeah.
Well, that's quite good. Right then, so we go for another question. So we've got... Now, this is dead straight. I know what you're going to say to this. Favourite method?
I'm just going to say pole shallow.
And that's it. Nothing else. So I'm going to ask you then, because again, I'm interested. Second favourite method?
Wag. Pellet wag.
Not good old traditional canal gudgeon waggler.
No.
Pellet waggler. So still shallow then?
Busy, yeah.
Yeah.
1,000 casts for 30 fish. Yeah. Non-stop fishing, yeah.
I prefer that. I don't like sitting waiting.
No. I hate sitting my hands.
Right.
I have irons on the go in the winter.
You're on the phone all match, you are. You don't do any fishing. Right.
I am a lot, yeah.
Right, let's have a look. So, I mentioned this before. Do you have any tips on practicing on a venue? It's a bit vague, that, isn't it? But it's still a question that's coming.
I've always been, me, like, not bother practice kind of person. But I did go and practice for Fisho, obviously, because I've done it. But I think when you go and practice for a match, it's never the same as when you go and fish the match. So the only thing you can get out of practice is making sure your up lengths are okay, your lines are okay, your elastics are okay, and you're fishing the right baits. I think that's the only thing you're going to sort out. Yeah,
that's interesting, isn't it? And I think that, again, it's a vague question with the practices on a venue. Does he mean venue specific? Or, I think that if I was doing a venue, let's say Pace Shallow, for example, you've done it a lot more than me. If I was going to go and use that in a match or try that out in a match, I would want to go and give it a go first to iron out the kinks. So something like that, a technique, I would want to go and practice that before I put it into practice in a match.
Yeah. So, going practicing certain ways of feeding and fishing, 100%.
Yeah. And I think as well for newer anglers out there, when you're watching feeder fishing, bomb fishing to features, things like that, the art of casting, clipping up, being accurate, it makes a massive difference. That practice, that time on the bank, makes a huge difference to your accuracy, which puts a lot more fish in the net.
The same with shallow fishing and people feeding while they're fishing the pole and slapping a rig over and stuff that they're not used to doing. You're best off going and spending a full day on the bank, just pick a line and do it all day.
Yeah. And again, for those of you who don't know where to start, you can submit questions into ourselves here at AS Fishing TV. Andy does coaching as well, so if you can't get hold of Andy, send us a message and I'll put you in touch, because I know he does stuff like that as well. And obviously there are plenty of really good anglers out there that offer that kind of expert advice, don't they, Andy?
Honestly, I used to work nights at a feed mill, and I used to put a bucket 5 metres away, and I'd sit there and practice throwing grain into a bucket at 5 metres just to get me accuracy. And then I'd move it to 6 metres and do it 6 metres. And I'd do it for hours. If anyone's watching being my boss there, then, that's going on.
And it's that grouping, isn't it, as well? And I find that if you're right-handed, most of the time your tray's on the left. And it's having the hand, isn't it, and just grouping whatever it is, casters, pellets, whatever, and just getting used to not only feeding and hitting the mark, but keeping that group nice and tight. And again, it's a really overlooked skill, I think, that match men, club anglers especially, club match anglers, something that I pick up a lot. If they say to me, I'm coming 5th, 6th in my club matches, what can I change to try and get 3rd, 2nd, 1st? Sometimes it's very simple little techniques like that.
Yeah, I think with fine margins like that, they need to change what they're thinking of doing a little bit quicker. and then they'll fill them gaps with fish, and yeah.
Yeah, and decision making is a whole other topic, innit? We could talk forever and a day on that. Maybe that's one for the future. We won't go into that too much tonight because we'll be here all night. And you said to me your bedtime's at 8:30, so
yeah.
Right. So we've just touched on practicing. Another question here is, how much mat prep do you do, and how do you fit it all in?
Who's asking these questions?
Well, we've had loads, mate. I'm just picking out a few.
What I want to know is who we made match prep.
This one, I don't think this has come from someone you know.
I am terrible at match prep. I do hardly any. Honestly, I'll get up in the morning and I'll tie the rigs for the day, and that's it.
Just like get up early and do it that day.
Anyone that knows me knows I'm crap. If I preps, you think I'm winding them up.
Okay. Fair enough. So the answer to that then, for that viewer, is hardly any, and he proper wings it and still cracks out results like they're nothing. Amazing. If only we could all do that. So I'm completely opposite. I am OCD with prep, and not to the point where I carry too much tackle, but I like to think that I've got options at the ready.
Well, I did bring my rig trays out just in case.
Did you? Yeah. Go on then.
That's it.
That's not bad.
Three rigs, shallow enough, miscellaneous, everything else.
So yeah, so that's not bad. That's not bad. The difference for me, I'm similar, but the difference for me is I've tied them up not the same day, a little bit before.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Do you tie your own hook lengths as well?
No.
You buy them all?
I tie some. When it comes to the winter and I want to refine things and add different hooks to different lines, I tie some of them.
Yeah.
For the main part, no, I buy them. Cut them down. I always put my own loop in them though. I don't like the loop when it comes off the cardboard, you know.
Yeah. Fabulous. Right, so being as you've got your rig boxes there, this brings us on to another question. So, I've done it as well. Look, ta-da! Right. So this question is talking about float choice. It's quite long. What they're trying to say is, what do you use for your shallow fishing? So obviously I know that's going to be at least 2 or 3 different patterns. What do you use for F1 on the deck?
Okay.
And what do you use down the edge? So it covers all sort of 3 things for you. That does, doesn't it? Go on, fire away.
Normal shallows. That's it. See that?
Hold it nice and close. It's a dibber for everybody out there. Yep.
And for F1s, carp, and everything. That's it. That's all I've got.
Just that.
Pace shallow. So that's shallow normally. Them ones are pace shallow and mugging.
Are the clear ones for mugging, Andy?
Crystal dibbers. I'll use them for paste as well.
All right. Okay.
And yeah, that covers all my shallow fishing.
Fabulous. So dibbers, and dibbers. So you're not using anything that's got a bit of a bristle on it, so you can read it as it goes through. Sort of deep, shallow.
Yeah, I'm probably lying there. If I'm fishing, I don't know whether you know, but I had a massive weight on meat shallow earlier in the year, £320. For that, I'm using 4x10 winter maggies, the RW maggies, but I come down.
So they're dead short.
Yeah, so shorten to about 3 inches. And they take 3 number 11s and they hold up a piece of meat. So I think I took them out of my boxes, so I haven't got any of them to show.
No, I haven't got anything similar, actually.
I mean, I've got normal maggies because I pretty much use them for absolutely everything else.
Have I got one? No, I think the ones I do similar, and mine are actually on top kits, which I haven't brought in. But yeah, they are. It literally is a very fine float, isn't it? Everything is really, really fine, and you just made it really short as well.
Yeah, and that's just for the directness. So if I'm laying a rigging left or right, or whatever, and it's falling through the water, I'm in contact with that little bait to me float, to me pole tip all the time.
Yeah,
because they can't feel the resistance of that float. It's just gone boom straight to the elastic.
Yeah, just straight on, aren't it? Straight on. Okay, so that's that one then. And so the other bit was F1 on the deck.
Right. So F1s, carp, everything. I use maggies, RW maggies.
Yep.
For everything. 1.5 mil tips. I've got a few with a 1.7 mil tip if I'm fishing a bit of pea paste or corn or big hard pellets. But yeah, Maggie's.
So just to clarify then for people, I mean I know why, but obviously that you're fishing the slightly bigger diameter tip for a little bit more buoyancy with those bigger baits.
That's it. Yeah.
Fabulous. So this brings me on to another thing, mate. Sorry, just to hold you there. 1.5 mil bristle for that kind of fishing against the 1.2. What do you reckon?
No, to be fair, I'll use a 1.5 in the winter as well, unless I really need to drop down to a 1.2.
Yeah,
I won't use 1.2 unless I'm desperate.
Yeah, and again, we were talking about it before, weren't we? When it's frozen over and you're breaking the ice and you really can't have any resistance at all, the fish breathes next to it and you need to be lifting in.
Yeah.
And some people can't see 1.2, especially at 14.5 metres, whatever.
Well, I'm a big believer, me, Adam, in using the same float and just I know that float inside out now. I know when it's not sat right. I know when someone's picked it up on the way down. I know when me pellet isn't registering on my float. I just know because I know the float. So I'll just use the same float. I don't complicate anything.
Yeah, and again, great advice. Keep it simple. There's that many patterns out there, can't it? I think some of it is a catch the angler scenario. And you said earlier on, fish to your strength. It's something that I always say, and sometimes I have to remind myself of it as well. You do sometimes want to try new products out, but fish to your strengths and keep it simple. Brilliant, mate. So what about down the edge?
They were in mine. If it's a nice edge, I'll use the muddy style floats that a lot of people use nowadays.
Yeah.
1.0 bristle, take a lot of shot. And that's got to be against a flat back.
Yeah.
So if it's not flat, I won't use that kind of float. I'll use something like a 4x10 Maggie, which people would never think of fishing down the edge. And if it's like an Ehrenbrook, the bank's like that.
Yeah, really steep slope.
Yeah, and I'll be fishing up against the bank here, and I'll use a 4x10 with all my bulk under the float, one number 11 dropper, and I'll have like an L shape like that.
Right.
Because there's no resistance, when that fish picks that up, I still see the bite clear as day. But that's just to keep the rig away from the fish, that.
Yeah, and it's massively important that as well about foul looking. We did have I've not written it down, but we did have a question about foul looking. How do you avoid foul looking fish in the margin? So you've just answered actually that without realising it. It's massively important that, isn't it? And again, reading the difference on a float that you're comfortable with between a positive proper bite that just literally buries, doesn't it, as opposed to your float moving around all over the place and then it's doing bouncing this and bouncing around, and people tend to lift without knowing it all too early, and that's when you foul looking fish down the edge.
Yeah, wait for that.
Yeah.
Good thing is, I've had a pair of them Oakley sunglasses, and you can see the fish take your bait anyway with them on.
Apart from the old off, as you were telling me earlier on, when you couldn't see anything in 18 inches.
Yeah, but yeah, when it's only 10 inches deep, you can see every fish in your peg with them glasses on when it's bright.
So there you go. Product placement. Andy said buy some Oakley sunglasses. There you go. Brilliant. So that brings us on to, we'll cover some floats. Brings us on nicely next to, there's two bits here. So elastics, what are you using at the moment? Brand, what kind of size for different kind of fishing?
I've only really used two for the last, I'm going to say the last 8 weeks or so. Obviously I was using midi elastics, and now I'm using whatever I want. And I've been using the matrix stuff. The orange for shallow and the yellow for carp down the edge.
The slick, yeah, matrix slick.
Yeah, I can't remember what ratings they are. The orange is around 12, something like that, 10s, 12s.
Yeah, it's the 10 to 12 is the red, I think, isn't it, in matrix? I think 12 to 14 might be the orange.
Well, that's the one then. I've been using that for shallow and F1s and long pole fishing, and short work, edge work, the yellow one, which is 14s, something like that.
Yeah, I do similar. So down the edge for me, because this question was for both of us, so I'll answer mine quickly. I use 3 sets of elastics pretty much for everything for me, and actually you'll see a video on this soon. It just hasn't finished being edited yet. So kind of silvers and winter F1s, I use MAP DKS 8 to 10s, so just a bit lighter than what you're talking about. But this time of year, everything's got 10 to 12 in it. It's practically the same as what you're using, Andy.
All right. Yeah, it's good enough.
it's great. I find it's very forgiving, powers up well, great control, lasts a while, comes in 6 meters. I had to look then because I never read the box. And then down the edge for most stuff, match fishing, I go up to the 14 to 16, just because you can allow it to run out your peg and not spook everything.
Probably identical to the Matrix stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And the only time I ever go up from that is if you're on like a proper hit and hold,
I've used down the edge of Edinburgh this year. I've took it out again because it's been too much, but I have tried some that stuff this year.
Good old tow rope at Herrenbrook, everybody. Make sure you use that.
Proper bungee stuff, yeah.
Fantastic. Now, that's the first part of that question. So the second part is, how do you prefer to attach your rig to your elastic?
Everything's just a bead now. The bead, the knot, that's it. Loop over the bead. Loop over the knot, pull the bead over, that's it, done.
Yeah, so direct anti-elastic, essentially. It's like the new version of what used to be the crow's foot, isn't it, essentially?
Yeah.
Brilliant. And I do that not for everything, I have to say. I do it for shallow fishing, but for everything else, I use a very short Dacron that I make myself. Right. You've seen, the viewers at home would have seen a video on that anyway. And I really like both, to be honest. I think if you are in a position where you are not able to replace your elastic on a regular basis, probably direct to elastic's not the best idea.
Well, your elastic stretches every match, depending on what you catch. And you only have to take a centimetre off, tie another knot, boom, you're away again.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some people, just pleasure anglers especially, don't necessarily check it first, things like that. Yeah. And I think it's sometimes it will bite you, won't it? If you don't look, and you might lose that bigger fish. But generally, I think that's the best. I like direct to elastic, but I also like really short Dacrons as well. So personal preference to answer that question, really.
Of course.
Fantastic. Right, next one. We're still on tackle. You have mentioned companies, and that leads me. You always get this question every time there's someone there, so we'll come to that in a bit. What brand of line are you using, mainline and hook length specifically?
I'm still using MIDI Lovis. I used it before I was with MIDI, and I'm using it now. I've left MIDI because I love it.
Just absolute confidence.
Yeah, I've used it for years.
Brilliant. Anyway. Yeah, I totally agree. If you've got something that you're comfortable with and you're happy with it and you're confident in it, it's massive, isn't it? There's no point in you hooking a fish and thinking, oh my God, is it going to last? Is it going to come off? Is it going to snap? Is it going to kink? Whatever.
Yeah, that's it.
Superb. That's that one. Hooks. Brand of hooks. What are you on? Guru.
Yeah, I use pretty much Guru for everything, except for pellet waggler and feeder. I use the pre-tied KKMBs from Preston. They're pre-tied on 15 inches.
Yeah, and they've got such a lovely shape to them, haven't they, the KKM range, especially for anything that's banded. I use them as well. I think they're really, really good.
Yeah, good ready rigs, because I don't like side me rigs.
You're quite organised tonight, though. You said I don't do any prep, but actually you got quite a bit there, haven't you?
Yeah, but I mean, I did most of that for Fisho, and I've never used it.
It's still in your box.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So you've just mentioned companies. This is a question that irritates a lot of people, and I completely understand why. You have been in a situation where you've been fortunate enough, I think is a good way to put it, to work with and alongside a number of companies. What's your pros and cons with being in and out of different companies and things like that? Pros and cons.
I've only really been with one, as a fully sponsored angler. That was with MIDI, but I've been in teams. I'm still in a team, Fish for General Northwest. But yeah, it's good. But I think it gets to a point where, for me, I just wanted to use what I want to use, and you seem to be using what I want to use as well, which is the difference. You know, when you're involved with a company, you can use other stuff, but you can't be seen to be using it.
Your hands are tied, aren't they?
Yeah. And I just want to use what I want to use. What makes my fishing better and easier.
Yeah, because you're not tied down to that, are you? So a common recurrence in the last 5 questions has been: be confident in the tackle that you're using, don't overcomplicate it, and fish to your strengths. And you can only do that if you're comfortable with the tackle that you're using from whatever brand that comes from.
Brands, have I mentioned what I use? I cherry pick what works for me from all the different brands, and that's what I use.
Yeah, that's really, really good.
And that makes me happy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of them, isn't it? I think, again, pros and cons from me, from my perspective. There is something really fantastic about receiving products that maybe haven't been brought out yet, where you can have a hand in something being developed. I think there's real interest in that for me personally. And I'm not fully sponsored either. So I again, even though there are some sponsorships that work and support the things that I do, I'm not completely tied down to that at all. I'm an independent creator that has support from a number of companies. So it's great to be able to try different things out. It's great to be able to have a hand in the development of certain products, especially like pole floats. So I'm going through some, I've got some prototype ones in here from somebody that handmade floats. So just to have some tweaks made and things like that and see what the difference is, really enjoy that. But like yourself, I'm not tied down to anything, so I can have a pole from Daiwa and I can have a seat box from wherever and blah blah blah, and that's quite nice. I love that.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think as well, you just said it improves your fishing. It gives you more of an how can I explain it? More of an insight really into whether a product can or cannot make a difference to the way that you fish.
Oh, it did. Yeah. They all help, don't they? That's what they're there for, to help you catch more fish. But you've just got to use them the right way and pick the right ones.
Yeah, and I think for the hundreds of thousands of anglers out there who are seeking sponsorship, and it comes up all the time, doesn't it? You must get it as well. I get it on the bank. I get it on social media. I think one of the most important things, if you're lucky to be approached by a company, is how can that company support your fishing as opposed to what kit you're going to send me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's massive, isn't it? And I think the higher up you go in your levels, the more important that becomes. You want a company that not only promotes you, but how are they going to support you as an angler?
The thing is, you've got to be doing something for them as well. You can't just expect to get everything for free. It doesn't work like that.
Definitely not.
Got to give to receive.
Yeah, which is why we're sitting here doing things like this at your bedtime nearly. Well, we've got half an hour yet. We're all right. It won't take half an hour. Okay, fantastic. Right, so we've covered loads of stuff. Well, let's get on to the next one. So, how do you approach? I'm reading it. How do you approach a venue for a match that you've never fished before?
The same way I'd approach a venue I do fish, and fish it my way. I'd get as much info as I can online. I'm not one for just have a look and a Google, and then I'll go and fish it my way. If I know certain baits work in there, then 9 times out of 10 I'll probably try that bait, but I'll still fish what I know works.
Good. So that's the first part of that question. The second part is, what point in the match do you make that change if you feel that you've started wrong? And you touched on this earlier on. You were talking about the swiftness of decision making in match fishing. So when would you change that? Yeah. So for example, to use your example then, you rock up somewhere, you're not even sure what the fish are eating, you fish to your strengths, it's not working. When do you change your mind on tactics?
When I can see what other people are doing. I'd see what other people are doing, and then I'd swiftly, like lines, distances usually. I think baits, if you fish a bait well, even if that's not the bait that's working, but you're confident in that bait, you'll catch on it. I 100% think that. So yeah, I'd be looking at what other people are doing, where they're fishing. Yeah, I mean, you get to a venue, don't you? You've never been before. You start short, and you look what everyone else is doing, and then you follow suit if what you're doing is not working.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, a question I had literally Sunday. The guy had come second on the match that I was on the end of, so I was talking to him at the end, and he said that his bugbear with his own fishing, his own match fishing, was that I never know where to start, never know what to go on to start with, and he was really kind of not panicking about it, but you can see there's so much advice out there, isn't there? He didn't know which bit to take.
So, always start on a short pole, or if you've got an island, start on a feeder truck. Put your hands under your bum and just watch what everyone's doing. You've not blown your peg, you've not fed bait where you shouldn't feed it. You just chill out and have a look what's going on.
Yeah, not to panic in that first even up to sort of 20, 30 minutes, really, isn't it? You really have a look to see what things are going on.
Well, a lot of venues, if you're fishing for carp, you might catch 1 or 2 in them that first half an hour, but then the next few hours are usually pretty slow on a carp venue, and it's not till the last couple of hours when you start catching. So that's the same. You can see when people start, oh, he's just gone down the edge and caught one. He's just gone down the edge and caught one. You know it's time to go down the edge. So you follow suit. So yeah, you keep your eyes out.
And not to panic either, isn't it? So once you've decided that you've made that decision that you're going to switch to down the edge or whatever because of what you've seen, not to panic now just because the person opposite or whatever has caught 2 fish down the edge. Not to kick yourself that you're 2 fish behind. You just need to get down there and get on with it.
Yeah, nice and smooth. Don't rush. And just hit your bites and get your fishing.
Yeah. Don't rush is massive, isn't it? Absolutely huge. So important.
Yeah, I'll just sit there and not panic. If people, I can be 10, 20, 30 pound behind, and I'll just sit there and not panic. It's just a match. We'll catch up if it's our day, and if it's not, then we won't.
Day's fishing, isn't it, mate? You can't complain. Yeah. Day's fishing. Brilliant. Okay, so next kind of, let's have a look. Some of the questions are rather entertaining. There's one here. Andy, why does your float go down more often than mine? Love it. Okay, so let's have a look. We've done new venue. We've done some of your tackle. This is an interesting one. I've never had this before. If money was no object, what product would you go out there and buy in the morning?
Tricky to answer that because I've got everything I need.
All right, smart so-and-so. I nearly swore then.
I've got a pole, I've got a box, I've got my nets, I've got my floats. Everything I've got because it's what I use. Tricky one, that. If money was no object, I'd go out and get a van. Carry me tackle.
And what? Sorry, I missed that.
Carry me tackle.
yeah, and an assistant to carry the rest of it.
Yeah.
That's what bank runners are for. I like that question, actually. I quite like that. I think, again, it depends on where you're up to on your personal journey, isn't it, as well? I think if you're a younger angler, you mentioned it earlier on, actually, get to grips with the venue, get to grips with a technique. So if you're fishing a pole at, let's take Elliot at 9 years of age, for example, 10 metres is more than enough for a lad of that age. Get competent on it. Don't think about expanding that until you've got it absolutely nailed. Don't make it hard for yourself.
Yeah, definitely. I'll tell you, there is probably one thing I would go and buy, though, and that's a set of top-end Waggler rods and reels. Because I've never played with any top-end, top-end rods. I've got an Engage 11-foot Waggler rod. And that's probably the best Waggler rod I've ever had my hands on. And it's not very expensive, so yeah, I'd probably go out and get some top-end Waggler rods.
That's interesting, isn't it? And I like as well, this comes on to another question. So there's been a question for me for a change, because obviously most of them are for you, understandably, because you're the one with the CV. But one to me here saying, it's around videography. When you're testing different products and filming, what product have you preferred the most, and were you allowed to keep it? That's what it says. So for me, I think, not that I preferred the most, but one of the things that surprised me. There's been a couple of things actually lately. One of them was the Shimano Aero X1 10-foot feeder, and I tested it alongside the new Daiwa Matchman range. So I had both of them on the same day, and I filmed it. And for those of you out there, you can see it on the YouTube channel. The Aero X1 surprised me so much. If you've not fished Arena at Culmore before, and you'll know this, Andy, as well, there's a lot of big fish in there. And they fight like crazy under your feet, don't they? They go nuts. That 10-foot rod for the Aero X1, it's 50 quid, 55 quid. And it was just so well balanced, so much power. The finesse at the top end that you've got for that accuracy with the casting and landing the feeder nicely. It was as good as some of the other rods that I do use and have used in the past that were 3-4 times the price of it, and that completely shocked me. So for that person, that was one of the ones that made me jump a little bit in a good way. Say again, mate.
But did you get to keep it?
I didn't get to keep it. I had to give it back. I was nearly in tears. You were saying at the start of tonight you were like a kid at Christmas. I was like someone who walked in on Christmas Day and set fire to the tree. It was awful. I had to give it back. It was really nice rod, and so was the Dyer one actually for the money. And I think again for wherever you're up to on your journey, you don't have to break the bank, do you? And you'll vouch for this, Andy. You do not have to break the bank to go and win matches. My pole at the moment is a Daiwa G20, and it's practically got a repair on every section. But I was down at Old Off the other week and won a match on an open on there. So you don't have to have thousands and thousands of pounds of kit. At the end of the day, it's about your ability, fishing to your strengths, and being confident in what you decide to do. It's how you present the bait. It's not what you're presenting it with. Yeah. Massive difference. Brilliant. So that was that question. No, yeah, I had to give it back. I was gutted. I was absolutely gutted. This one's for you, Andy. What is the best pole you've ever used and why?
It's
and don't be rude.
Honestly.
It's your what, mate? Sorry, say that again.
My Tony Pro. Absolutely fantastic. It's so responsive, yeah. I've had quite a few decent poles. I've had the top end midi, I've had the top end Mavers. I had a Super G10 back in the day, a Garbo Super G10, and that, to be fair, was probably my favourite pole until I got my Tony Pro recently.
Brilliant, love it. I mean, like I said, obviously that's much better than the one that I'm using, but I love that pole still. I think that
they're a good pole.
Yeah, it does everything you need to do on a tin. Yeah, at 16 metres, it's going to be heavier than yours, but it's it depends on the day, doesn't it? The match we fished together, I watched you bin that far line because you couldn't reach it, literally like that.
That was it.
Yeah.
I've always had extensions, and by the way, I have got 2 extensions now, so I can reach anywhere now. But yeah, it's the first time I've ever sat on that lake and not been able to reach the far bank.
It was a long way, wasn't it? 17 and a half?
Oh, 17 and a half on the peg I was on, yeah.
Yeah, it was a long way. And I did put 3 rollers out and I got to 16. Then I went to 17 and it was still a bit of a stretch and I thought this isn't going to work. It was a bit nuts. Okay, let's have a look. We've got some nice questions coming in here as well now. Hello to you. Fantastic. Excuse me looking up. I'm reading on a different screen. Let's have a look. I fish border fisheries with my dad. I've seen you before. Are you sponsored by MAP now? It's for me for a change. No is the answer. I am an independent creator and I get support from MAP, which is brilliant to do. And like I said before, if you missed it, it means I get to play with a variety of products, but I've still got the freedom to choose what I want to choose because I'm comfortable with it. So that's fantastic. This is for you, Andy, from Bill. What's your best tip for catching F1s in winter on snake lakes?
Be patient, move around, don't feed a lot.
Blunt, that was, wasn't
it? Dick what you can early, and then try and clatter and wait on a short maggot line usually.
Yeah, and rotate your lines, isn't it? You mentioned it earlier on.
I mean, it depends what they're eating. If they're eating pellets, I'd be tapping in 2, 3, 4 micro pellets with a 4mm. If they're eating maggots, I'd be doing the same 2, 3, 4 maggots. But I'd be searching them shells 4 foot, 3 foot, 2 foot, try to find where they are. If you get a bite in 3 foot in a certain place and then you don't get another bite, don't look in a different depth. Look in 3 foot again and move up and down. And find where they're confident and comfortable to eat.
I think you've touched on something massive there, Andy, that doesn't get covered frequently, especially not in the videos that you see online. Is you talked before about loving certain methods like shallow fishing because you like to be really, really busy and you've got no patience. You can be just as busy, and you've just said it, you can be just as busy searching your pegs, searching depths, especially for F1.
100%.
And you don't see that a lot, do you? You'll see somebody go out and they'll pick a line and they'll sit there and they'll give up on it maybe after an hour potentially.
Yeah.
You can't afford to do that.
Got to find them.
Say that again.
They'll be there somewhere. You've just got to find them.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Especially in commercials where it's so overstocked as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. So that's that one. And then Bill, so this is the same guy. He's then finished his question off with, what's your favourite lawnmower?
So he knows me, this fella, then.
He must do, yeah. This is Bill 1903. I hope that's not his age.
Honda, is he?
There you go. So not only have we answered every fishing question you can think of, but also what your favourite lawnmower is. Love it. Brilliant. Thanks for that, Bill. Right, this is another F1 winter-related one. Yeah, okay. When would you start dobbing bread?
Never, if I can help it. I'd always try and catch on bait. When you can see the bottom 3 foot down, it's time to start dobbing bread. And when you can't get a bite feeding, I mean, a lot of people start dobbing. I'll usually start feeding myself and see what everyone else is doing. I'll probably start, like, depending on the makeup of the lake. If it's pretty much the same depth all the way across, so I'll go 3/4 of the way across. So on a snake lake, I'll just tap a few maggots in and see what's happening.
Yeah, just to see if you get a response.
Yeah. If I can help not dobbing, I won't dob. I don't even tie dobbing rigs. I just use me maggots.
You don't tie any rigs by the sound of it.
Same float for everything.
I'm going to buy you a massive pike float. You're just going to have to use that now from ever on in. Big proper, the old-fashioned ones with the massive, what are they? Cane.
In place.
Yeah. It'll work for your pace fishing. You'd be fine. Okay. So I think for me, the only time... If you're on, because we've not mentioned it yet, we've talked very much commercial wise. If you're on a venue that is a very silty bottom as opposed to clay, a lot of commercials now, aren't they, clay or sort of stonish bottoms. If you're on a very peaty bottom, and we've had a few questions from people that fish at Border Fisheries, it's all completely silty and peaty there. So the water goes very clear very quickly.
I'm going to have to tell you a story about that, aren't I?
Go on.
Because I say I don't do dobbing, and if I can help it, I fished one match at Border last winter, and all I did all day was dob, and I won a match with 100 and something pound.
So you were lying to us. Is what you...
was amazing. Yeah, all I did is dobbed all day. I had about 45, 50 fish for 100 and something pound.
Was that on the canal, was it? The Meridian Canal?
Yeah, it was on the peg, I'm going to say 50. How many pegs are on that canal?
About 68-ish.
So it's going to be about 56, peg 56, just to the right as you walk on.
Yeah, I think anything on there between kind of 50 and 40-ish, 38, is normally where they tend to show up in the winter because it's deeper.
Yeah.
And to be fair as well, to share that, the last match I fished on the Meridian Canal, which was before lockdown, I also won, and I also dobbed bread, didn't feed a single thing.
Yeah, I did have a few on pellets later on, but yeah, I dobbed a lot of fish.
I found that people started to catch before I did in that match. And again, you talked about this, watching other anglers before. I could see they were catching a few, and I was probably catching one, maybe to their 3. But then after an hour, they stopped catching. They backed off that feed, and then I didn't. Yeah, and I just didn't feed at all. I just dobbed bread. Literally, just kept it falling through the water. Nice strung out rig, shotted rig. And in some cases, everything went under the float, just got it floating down as slow as I could possibly get away with, and they were just taking it about halfway down. So yeah, important. That's an important one. So that brings us on after I've mentioned silt. I've done that purposely. So, how do you change the shotting pattern on your pole rigs for different bottoms? So from clay bottom to silt bottom. So obviously silt where things can sink, I think they mean, and clay where it's generally a bit harder. I think this is in relation to margin fishing more than anything, where you might have the bulk closer to your hook.
Yeah, but you won't have a soft bottom down the margins, will you? It'll be rock hard.
It should be, even on a silt venue, yeah.
Yeah, the silt will only be down the middle, and I won't change shot. I change shotting patterns as to where I'm getting bites, not to what the makeup of the bed is or anything like that.
Brilliant, there you go. So massive tip there from someone as good as yourself. Fantastic. What time are we on, Andy? We're nearly at your bedtime. Right, let's see if we can squeeze in maybe 1 or 2 more. 2 questions in one. When plumbing up, what does he mean? I think he means when you've plumbed up, you've got your plummet on, you do the depth, that's all fine. Do you then go back over the same spot with like a swan shot to really refine it? I don't either.
Hard bottom, half a body over depth, and that's it. Standard.
I think, if you're on a silty venue and you've caught a load of fish and you think suddenly you stop catching or you're getting indications but not quite hooking fish properly, they might have dug it out a bit, mightn't they? It might be worth a check, but not necessarily with a plummet and a swan shot separately.
Yeah.
Just another plummet back on again.
Check, but I probably wouldn't, if they dug that out 5, 6, 7 inches, I probably wouldn't fish there again. I'd just move a metre left, right, back, forward. I'd just start somewhere else.
Yeah.
Not too far enough to get out of that whole line. But yeah, if it's that silty, I'd probably be looking to get out the silt. So if you're on a snake lake, I'd be looking to get onto the second shelf at the back behind the silt or this side of the silt.
Yeah, and it's really important. So if you don't realise, it will build up, won't it? So at the bottom of the slope, for example, will be very, very silty. But the fish will start to clear it as you go through the day because they'll patrol up and down, won't they, and pick stuff off.
I think you'll find, and I found this on a lot of silty canal-style lakes, the very bottom of that shelf, far shelf, I found that quite clear and quite hard, and also sometimes a little bit deeper than the main track. Because I think they're swimming up and down it that often that they've cleared it out and there's no silt there, and the silt's back on the main, like your top 5, top 6, top 7. That's where the silt is. Yeah,
and it's such an important line, isn't it, match fishing wise? That 6, 5, 6 sections out, massively important line that I think people come off sometimes far too soon. Right, brilliant. So, I think we've got. Let me have a look. Got time for one more. This is a good one to finish on, really, unless you've got any questions for me. Let me just check. We've got a little more there. No, right, we're good. So, what is the plans for the next 12 months?
Just take it as it comes. I do, honestly. I've got, what have I got coming up? I've got teams of 4 at the Old Huff Winter League. I've got teams of 4 at Ehrenbrook with two different teams. Hopefully, we've got the teams of 8 Winter League final. Boy Angling Trust Winter League with General North West. Hopefully qualify for the final. And then I'll think about summer after Finals. Winter. Yeah. I'll try and get some tickets for Fisho. I'm not going mad. Go for the venues that I like. I'm not travelling 100 miles to fish somewhere I've never been before. I'll just try and get the local ones. Yeah, definitely, and same for me this year, really. Obviously, back into the open circuit, and it'll be a bit more of a push for me this year. But it's really interesting there, Andy. It has been interesting in general, from my point of view, and I hope for all of you that have written into questions for Andy himself, you've got the answers that you want, and hopefully more. It's just been really good fun, mate. I've got to say, it's been great. That's what fishing's about, isn't it? Yeah, just stop beating me, and but I'll let you off. I'll get my own back, I'm sure, at some point. Okay, so that's been it for me today. Again, massive thank you to the legend that is Andy Dyson. Andy, it's been nothing but a pleasure. Hopefully we get the chance to do this again, and maybe we even get on the bank and I'll bring some cameras with me and we'll do a bit of something, a bit of a challenge, and you can absolutely kill me in it. That'd be quite nice to do something like that possibly in the future. Yeah, why not? Why not? Exactly. Sounds good fun. So for all of you at home, massive thank you for joining in. Massive thank you for the questions, for everything, on the bank, for social media, for the YouTube stuff. Just remember this video, if you've missed some or you dipped in and out, the video will be available on the channel for you to watch back at your leisure. You can have a good laugh at yourself, Andy, as well, I'm sure. Or you can just run a mile, entirely up to you. So it's out there for you to have a little look at, and you can obviously watch it back and pick up the tips, and hopefully it does make a difference, a positive difference to not just your fishing and your results, but actually helps you get the most from your fishing, and that's really important. It's not always about results, it's about you enjoying your fishing and getting the most from it, wherever you're up to on your journey, wherever you want to go to within that. So make sure you're out there on the bank, make sure you're enjoying it, make sure you're safe, make sure you're looking after the environment, keep everything great for the rest of us so that we all enjoy it the next time we're out. And that has been it from us. Andy, you need to stay on the line, matey. I'll be with you shortly, but for the rest of you, thank you so much. This has been AS Fishing TV, and I'll see you out on the bank very soon.